I'm so glad we finally got this moment alone.
It feels perfect. Get your hands off him right now.
The day Marcus introduced his new wife at the company gala, he had the audacity to seat me at table 9. Not the front, not beside the family. Table 9, near the kitchen, next to people who didn't even know my name. I sat there in a dress I ironed 3 times, watching Sienna laugh at something Marcus whispered in her ear, her diamonds catching every light in that room. Diamonds from his stores, diamonds I helped build. And I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. Not broken, not crying. Quiet. Because I remembered the night Marcus came home with nothing but a dream and empty pockets. And I was the one who said, "I believe you. Let's build this together." That was 22 years ago. And this is what together looked like now. Before Marcus, before the empire, before all of it, I had a name that meant something to me. Claire Donovan, 24 years old, a junior accountant at a mid-size firm in Chicago with a 5-year plan, a savings account I was proud of, and a laugh that my mother always said could fill a room. I wasn't the kind of woman who needed saving. I want you to understand that clearly. I wasn't lost. I wasn't desperate. I was building something, slowly, carefully, the way my father taught me. Then I met Marcus Webb at a mutual friend's dinner party on a Tuesday night in October, and everything I was building quietly shifted direction without me even noticing. He was magnetic. That's the only word. Not just handsome. Magnetic. He talked about his jewelry business idea with so much fire, so much certainty, that you didn't question whether it would happen. You only wondered how long it would take. He looked at me that night like I was the most interesting person in the room. 3 months later, I was in love. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year later, I was his wife. And I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. I need you to hold on to that. Because what came later could make you forget that the beginning was real. The love was real. I wasn't a fool. I was a woman who chose a man she believed in. The difference matters. People hear the word sacrifice and they imagine something dramatic, a single moment, a grand gesture. That's not what it looks like. Not really. Sacrifice looks like waking up at 5 a.m. to get to your second job so that your husband can take a meeting downtown without worrying about the electricity bill. It looks like turning down a promotion because accepting it meant relocating, and Marcus had just signed a lease on his first small studio where he was handcrafting pieces and selling them at weekend markets. It looks like eating rice and beans for 3 months straight while telling everyone you're watching your diet because you're too proud to admit the business took every dollar you had that quarter. It looks like sitting across from your mother at Christmas, listening to her quietly ask if you're okay, and smiling wide enough that she believes you when you say yes. That was my life from year 1 to year 7 of our marriage. I worked 2 jobs for 4 of those years. I managed every account, every invoice, every tax filing for Marcus Webb Jewelry while also holding down my accounting position. I was his bookkeeper, his strategist, his emotional anchor, and his biggest believer. All at once. When his first real store opened on Michigan Avenue, I stood in the back and watched him cut the ribbon and shake hands with people who had no idea who I was. A reporter took a photo. Marcus is front and center, smiling that smile. I'm blurred in the background. I didn't think anything of it then. I should have. By year 10, Marcus Webb Jewelry had 4 locations. By year 14, it had 11. Across Chicago, New York, Miami, and Atlanta. The brand became a name. The name became a symbol. Celebrities wore his pieces. A famous singer wore one of his necklaces to an awards show, and the website crashed from traffic the next morning. Marcus was featured in Forbes. Then again. Then again. And I was proud. Genuinely, fiercely proud. Because I knew what that success was built on. I knew the nights, the fears, the moments he almost quit and I talked him back from the edge. I knew every brick of that empire because I had helped lay them. But success does something to some people. It doesn't reveal their character. It replaces it. The Marcus who used to reach for my hand under restaurant tables stopped reaching. The Marcus who used to call me 3 times a day just to hear my voice stopped calling. He started working later, traveling more, coming home with a distance in his eyes that no conversation could close. I told myself it was the pressure of growth. I told myself he was just tired. I told myself all the things a woman tells herself when she's not ready to see what's directly in front of her. Then one evening, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for 2. A restaurant I'd never been to. A bottle of wine that cost more than our first month's rent together. I stood in our kitchen holding that receipt for a very long time. Her name was Sienna, 29 years old. A brand consultant he had hired 18 months earlier to reposition the company for a younger luxury market. She was good at her job, I'll give her that. She was also beautiful, polished, and completely unburdened by the years it took to build what she was now being paid to rebrand. I confronted Marcus on a Sunday morning. No dramatics, no screaming. I put the receipt on the kitchen counter and I asked him one question. How long? He didn't deny it. That was almost worse. A denial would have given me something to fight. Instead, he sat down, rubbed his face with both hands and said, Claire, I think we've grown apart. Grown apart. 22 years, 2 miscarriages, 3 business crises I pulled him through, 4 cities, every dream he ever had carried partly on my back. And the conclusion he had arrived at, quietly, without me, was that we had grown apart. I didn't cry in front of him. I refused to give him that. I walked to our bedroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and I let myself fall apart in complete silence. Because some pain is too private for witnesses. The divorce proceedings lasted 8 months. His lawyers were expensive, sharp, and ruthless. Mine was competent but outgunned. Marcus had quietly restructured key business assets 2 years prior, something I hadn't noticed because I had stepped back from the financials when the company brought in a proper CFO. I later understood that stepping back had cost me everything. The settlement I received was functional, a word I use carefully. It wasn't nothing. But for 22 years of my life, for what I had poured into that man and that company, it was as close to nothing as the law could legally justify. No stake in the business, no recognition of contribution. A lump sum that his lawyers successfully argued was generous given that I had not been a formal employee. Not a formal employee. I had been the foundation. And foundations don't get severance packages. 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, Marcus announced his engagement to Sienna in a press release. A press release. I read it on my phone in the parking lot of a grocery store, and I sat there until the sun went down. Which brings us back to where we started. Table 9, near the kitchen. The gala celebrating the opening of Marcus Webb Jewelry's flagship store in Manhattan, a store I had once dreamed about with him out loud on a fire escape in Chicago with cheap wine and big plans. I almost didn't come. My sister told me not to. My therapist told me to think carefully about what I was hoping to feel by being there. But I came because I refused to disappear. I had spent too many years becoming invisible in that man's story. I would not help him finish the erasure. Halfway through the evening, Sienna found her way to my table. I don't know what she expected. Tears, maybe? Bitterness? A scene she could feel victorious about. Instead, I looked at her calmly and I said, "You're wearing the Celestine necklace." I named that piece. Marcus designed it the week after I described the kind of necklace I'd want to be buried in. I hope it looks better on you than the marriage will feel in year 8. She didn't respond. She walked away. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like myself again. I want to tell you that revenge is what saved me. It would make for a cleaner story. But the truth is messier and more powerful than that. What saved me was a decision I made 3 months after the divorce. I took the settlement money, every dollar of it, and I started over. Not in spite, not in anger, in clarity. I launched a financial consulting firm for women-owned small businesses. Women who were exactly where I had been. Brilliant, working hard, carrying other people's dreams while quietly neglecting the legal and financial architecture of their own. The first year was slow. The second year, word spread. By year 3, I had a waiting list. I'm not a billionaire. I want to be honest with you about that. I'm not going to give you a fairy tale ending where I out-earn Marcus and buy his company. What I have is something he will never be able to restructure, rebrand, or take from me in a settlement. I have my name back. My own name. Built on my own terms. Claire Donovan. Not Claire Webb. Not Marcus's wife. Not the woman at table 9. Just Claire. And that is more than enough. Marcus Webb jewelry is still growing. I see the ads sometimes. Sienna is in some of them now. Her face beside the brand I helped breathe into existence. I don't feel rage when I see them anymore. I feel something quieter. Something close to gratitude, actually. Because that man's betrayal broke open a version of me I never would have found if I had stayed comfortable. Pain has a way of doing that when you let it move through you instead of burying it. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself in Claire's story, if you have ever poured yourself into someone else's dream and found yourself erased from the credits, I need you to hear this clearly. Your sacrifice was not weakness. Your love was not foolishness. But your next chapter belongs entirely to you. Don't you dare let anyone seat you at table 9 again.